Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Newsbrowse News broadcast. UPI reports that global oil prices briefly surged to a four-year high of $126 a barrel in Asian markets overnight, driven by escalating fears of renewed U.S. military action against Iran and the prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Brent crude, the international benchmark, reached $126.31. Its highest point since the 2022 Russia-Ukraine war. The surge was prompted by reports suggesting U.S. military commanders were proposing short and powerful strikes to President Donald Trump to compel Iran into negotiations. However, prices later retreated, with Brent trading at $113.91 a barrel and American crude at $114.82 by mid-afternoon in London. The White House indicated discussions with U.S. oil executives about maintaining the blockade for months to minimize consumer impact. With approximately 25% of the world's oil supply transiting through the Strait of Hormuz, market participants are increasingly concerned about long-term supply disruptions. Al Jazeera reports that Israeli attacks on southern Lebanon have resulted in at least 9 fatalities and numerous injuries, with specific incidents occurring in Jebshit, Toul, and Haruf. These attacks come despite a recent 3-week extension of a U.S.-mediated ceasefire. Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun condemned the ongoing Israeli violations, highlighting the destruction of homes and places of worship and the rising death toll. He urged for international pressure on Israel to adhere to international laws and conventions, particularly concerning the targeting of civilians and humanitarian workers. Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri called for an international fact-finding committee to investigate Israeli actions. Al Jazeera correspondent Malcolm Webb noted that Lebanon's president is seeking renewed negotiations but insists on full ceasefire implementation. He also commented that external pressure, particularly from the U.S., might be the only way to slow the escalating conflict. According to Al Jazeera, the United States has suffered significant destruction of military equipment in the ongoing war with Iran, with estimated losses ranging between $2.3 billion and $2.8 billion and $4.8 billion. A Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, calculated these figures, noting that aerial equipment alone accounted for up to $2.8 billion. The losses include sophisticated systems like missile defense radars and airborne command centers, with some equipment, such as 3 F-15 jets, lost due to friendly fire incidents. The report highlights that, while the U.S. has disclosed some figures, full transparency is limited for political reasons, especially with upcoming midterm elections. Experts suggest that Iran's strategy of targeting Gulf nations, while intended to fracture alliances, has instead driven them closer to the U.S. The article also touches upon the logistical challenges faced by the U.S. military in maintaining the Strait of Hormuz's open passage, noting that forces were not initially in place to address the situation effectively. The U.S. economy experienced a slower than anticipated growth in the first quarter of 2026. According to a report released on Thursday by the U.S. Commerce Department, the gross domestic product, GDP, expanded at an annualized rate of 2%. This figure fell short of the projections made by Wall Street analysts, who had expected a higher rate of growth. The Commerce Department's findings indicate a potential slowdown in economic momentum compared to earlier forecasts. This news from Shinyanet highlights a key economic indicator that will likely be closely watched by investors and policymakers alike. CBS News reports that Israeli forces intercepted 22 vessels of the global Sumud Flotilla, GSF, off the Greek island of Crete, detaining their crews. Activists condemned the action as piracy, alleging that Israeli naval forces smashed engines and destroyed navigation systems, intentionally leaving hundreds of civilians stranded directly in the path of an approaching storm. Israel's foreign ministry, however, derided the convoy as the Condom Flotilla and another PR stunt by professional provocateurs on pleasure cruises. This incident follows a similar interception last October, where Israeli forces stopped a previous GSF flotilla, arresting over 470 people, including Greta Thunberg. The article also highlights dire conditions in Gaza, citing a UN report of ongoing Israeli airstrikes, shelling, and gunfire, widespread rodent and parasite infestations due to overcrowding and poor sanitation, and 90% displacement of Gaza's population due to the Israel-Hamas war, which has caused tens of thousands of casualties. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.